Welcome to the Only Dream Big podcast, starring your host, Donnie Bedney. Only Dream Big is a podcast where Donnie will share tips and experiences on different topics, such as acquisition entrepreneurship, human capital, and the future of the workforce. He is the president of PSP Metrics and has been in the assessment and human capital management industry for more than 15 years, with the goal of driving change through people.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Only Dream Big podcast. I'm your host, Donnie Bedney. So excited for this conversation today because this is literally one of my favorite people in the entire world, and she's been that for a number of years because we go way back. We're not going to say that we're old, but we go way back, all the way back to college, actually, and she is doing big things. So. Alyson Parker Gordon, welcome to the pod today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. My dream buddy. So we always have, I feel like, been dreaming big dreams. So I'm excited to be here today.
Man, we have, and that's one of the reasons we had to have you on here. I think that, when I think about you, I think, just someone who, it has consistently aspired, to do bigger things, as people probably have, anyone who knows you or has watched your career is probably always thinking like, man, Alyson's always up to big things, etc. But getting the opportunity today just to chat a little bit more about, your journey, maybe a little bit about, what you're doing, currently, and I don't know. You can go back literally as far as you want to, because I know that you've worked in, I'll say, human capital, human resources, around talent and all these other things for a long time. Is that something that you always aspired to do? I know that you've held numerous executive roles. Was that kind of always the goal?
Never. I actually did not have a lot of clarity. I knew the simplest thing I knew, and what I always said was, I want to work with people. But you're like, what job is that? Is that being a receptionist? Because I had that job in, high school at a doctor's office and loved it. But I didn't see that as my career path either. And so I went to school hoping to kind of find my way. I thought, is that psychology? I quickly found out that it was not. I think I lasted one class in psychology and dropped it. I thought maybe marketing. But I was not as interested in some of the, I think the data side of marketing, the science of marketing. And so I said, let's just do business. And so toward the end of my undergrad is where I discovered HR. And I said, well, maybe this is it. Randomly, I had all these smaller experiences within healthcare. So I knew I liked the industry, but I didn't know where my entry point would be. And so I had the opportunity to start in human resources, and had a really great experience getting to see different aspects of it. And I think it's really interesting as I think about my time as a human capital leader, they're really important people along your journey that help shape your path and really help you make wise decisions along the way. So pretty early on, I had this most senior actually HR leader in our organization sat me down and said, this is where HR has been, but this is where it's going. And so as you're here in the middle of what has been and what will be, pick your path, but I highly suggest you shift your learnings this way and you align yourself this way. And I was like, oh, done. And that was really helpful for me. But I think about if I hadn't have had, these small nudges along the way of people helping guide me. So I always knew I wanted to be one of those leaders that was helping change HR. And I really enjoyed the aspect of working with people, but what I found over time is like, it's really the structure and the system of how HR works that allows HR to be functional. And I think sometimes you have a department full of people that like people, but that doesn't mean you can be effective at taking care of people. True. And so there's a very clear distinction in executing human resources strategy and being a nice person and caring for people. Those are not the same. And so I think you have a greater impact when you're able to have systems and structures and policies that are going to support people and protect people and be there for people when they need it to be there. And I think that is more where I feel my sweet spot is. So
Sure.
basically fell into HR and have stayed in HR. I left HR for about a year and I was doing ambulatory operations. And I thought, you know what, like maybe this isn't my fit. Maybe I've outgrown it. But I absolutely hated it. I absolutely
Yep.
hate it. I really craved the human capital space
Hmm.
more than I ever thought I would. So I'm really grateful for that experience to know like that I was where I was supposed to be. And
Sure.
so soon after that is actually when I came to my current organization. So I currently work for Duke Health and I'm the
Hmm.
assistant vice president for new talent strategy. So we do
Hmm.
basically anything related to new people. So talent acquisition, onboarding, orientation, that kind of work, career pathing, which we'll be getting into in talent mobility. So
Mm.
we are building a lot of that because it has not existed. And so
Sure.
that has also been fun for me because you really get to put your fingerprints on things. But I think in a very general sense, that's kind of been my path that's led me here is saying like, how can I help be the leader that creates the structure we need? So then it makes it easy for the people who are like, I just want to help people. Great. We have a system in place for that. Just follow this path.
Yep.
So yeah, it's been a really interesting journey and met some interesting people, good people along the way too.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Man, so many different ways that we could kind of, rabbit hole, at this point. But, kind of sticking with, systems. You referenced like systems, executing, how you've been able to do that, kind of throughout your career and frankly have impact on, the organizations that you've been a part of. And I think that that's so key, right? Driving change through people is kind of, a subtitle of our Only Dream Big podcast. So, as you think about those systems, have you been able to kind of apply, similar systems or taken a similar approach, kind of in your life and just in your own, as you think through either personal or professional, career as well?
So maybe not quite a system, but I would say some principles. So
Okay.
for me, the two things I think, try to live by are people and performance. But if I
Okay.
have to pick one, I actually pick people first. So, um, any role, I really am intentional about focusing on my relationships. So I guess there's a
Okay.
little bit of some systems to this. So for example, um, telling all my trade secrets here. So I do assess the people that I work with,
Okay.
um, their relation to my work, their interest, their influence in the organization, and I
Hmm.
intentionally manage those relationships. So
Okay.
that might mean I might want to be on Donnie's calendar every month. It might
Mm-hmm.
mean that I actually just want to get to know him, and so I'm going to ask for coffee or lunch. It
Hmm.
might mean that I need Donnie's support to get something passed, and so I'm always going to give him a preview. So
Mm.
I will
Hmm.
say, when it comes to managing my people relationships,
Yeah.
I do get kind of systematic about who should I be talking to and
Sure.
when. I do not believe in managing those relationships or building those relationships, maintaining
Hmm.
them by accident. I think that there are friendship relationships that develop at work, and those can be very casual.
Yep.
But when it comes to, again, being effective and leading change, you have to do all of that on purpose.
Hmm.
Um, if you are doing your work with purpose, you also need to do it on purpose. And so
Yeah.
I don't believe that you can really kind of just like accidentally think things are going to work out or that people like you or you're going to be charismatic. That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
I would say that that's one kind of system I use is making sure I know who I need to be talking to at any given time, who I need to spend more time with. And sometimes that's
Hmm.
also just from a personal goals perspective. Like if I want to be more involved in the community, then
Yeah.
I need to be building relationships that are going to allow me to get closer to the outreach work that I want to do or the community work that
Sure.
I want to do. And
Yeah.
then I would say from a performance perspective, I also get pretty specific about goals. So,
Okay.
for example, as we turn the page on a new year, I am
Mm.
all about turning a page on a new year because I'm like, new goals, new year, new goals.
Let's do it.
But really setting those goals, setting SMART goals and measuring my own success against my own bar. Because I think it's easy
Mm.
for people to say, like, look at all you're doing, like, look, you're killing it. It's like, but I have goals, right?
Yeah.
This is not because I just woke up and magically things are like falling in place. No, like
Yeah.
it's work. And I think it starts from really great goals.
Hmm.
And so setting those big goals, setting those big dreams that people feel
Yeah.
sometimes impossible, and really
Hmm.
having a plan to get there. The plan can change.
Yeah.
The journey can look different, but to be really clear on your goals can help you get a lot done. So I would say those are kind of some of the things I think about in my journey.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. And that first part that you shared with me, are you familiar with the, well, you're familiar with the game of chess,
Yeah.
right? Have I shared with you kind of there was an article that came out a number of years ago, and there was like a question that they asked to a bunch of like Silicon Valley founders and et cetera. Have we talked about this before?
No, we haven't.
All right, because I don't think I've shared it on the pod, so this will be the first time, right? So we're going to do this live. And so, you're familiar with the game of chess. The question is, because all these founders answered the exact same way.
Okay.
Right? And I'm going to ask you the same question. So if you could be any piece in the game of chess, what piece would you be?
Ooh, that's interesting. What piece would I be? I'll be honest. I think the piece that I probably most closely relate to, and I don't remember the name of it, but it's the one that looks like a horse. What's the name of that one?
I think that's a knight,
A
actually.
knight?
Mhm.
Because I know I would not want to be the queen.
Okay.
I think the queen to me is like all the pieces I think of as protecting the queen.
hmm
And so that to me actually makes me think about the queen being in a less powerful position because it needs the protection almost.
Interesting.
Um,
That's interesting. Interesting way
yeah.
to think about it.
So I think the idea of being a little bit of an underdog and being unexpected, right? Moving in an untraditional, it's not a straight line, right? Because it moves in like that L shape.
Yep.
So it's not a straight line.
Look
And
at you knowing your chess, man. This is a big deal.
preaching
This is
next a
this
little bit.
the strategy and everything else. I somehow knew that you would like the game of chess. And so not to continue the suspense for our listeners as
Yeah,
well.
go ahead.
But that I love the explanation because typically most people would say like, well, I want to be the queen because like it's the most powerful piece, right? The king is basically one of the
Right.
weakest. But then I've also had some folks who've said they wanted to be a pawn
Mm,
because you have the ability, if you get to the other side of the board, to become whatever piece you want to. And
that's
so I've
true.
heard a lot
That's
of
true.
a lot
That's
of
true.
that. But the answer is the board.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
Ex-
Okay.
wow,
Yeah.
wow. So the
Yeah.
answer is the board. And the reason why is because one, they said they don't want to play by anyone else's rules,
Mm.
and they'd much rather they'd rather be able to place people accordingly,
Mm-hmm.
on their board. And so the aha for me, which it sounds like it may be, because I'm going to pass this back to you, this has been similar in your world and life and how you've been able to achieve things, is we all have a board, right? And our life is a board. And whether we fully acknowledge this or not, we get to choose the people that we want on our board.
Yeah.
And we also have the ability to move those individuals around in ways that are advantageous to moving towards whatever dream or goal you'd like to establish. Me personally, I tend to do it from the perspective of what are the best kind of win-win type situations for everybody, and not in a Machiavellian kind of dark
Yeah.
way, right?
Yeah.
Although there are people who do that. I feel like that's very short term and is not sustainable at all. But that analogy and stuff just really came to the forefront when you were sharing, how you go about evaluating people and checking in at certain times. For
Yeah.
everybody,
Yeah.
who was wondering, Alyson and I don't talk every month, but at least once a year, I would say,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
always
Yeah. We
seems
check
to
in a
be
couple
like
times.
the right time
Yeah.
when we both need to chat through something. But have you found that to be, similar? Like, do you think through it in kind of a strategic, like board-like way?
Oh, absolutely. Like it's very intentional to say, here's what I need to do for Donnie, here's what I need to do for Susie. It's never going to be the same, and I'm going to basically set a goal or intention for what I'm trying to do with that relationship. So absolutely, I think that I think people underestimate the need for like very thorough planning when it comes to certain things. And again, it depends on how much it matters to you or what you're trying to accomplish. But
Sure.
I think that you can cut so much time off of like trying to get something done or accomplish something with a really good plan. It might take you a little longer to plan. And then people say, I'll probably get this a little bit wrong, but something popped up for me the other day on Instagram, and it was Jay-Z talking about how everyone wants to emulate your success and the end result of something, but they don't ever emulate the journey because they don't see your grind. They don't see the process that it took you years of work that you put in. They just see your accomplishment and they're emulating that. And I was like, yeah. And so I really think that there's so much that is not appreciated about planning and thoughtfulness and intentionality. And people are just trying to rush to the end. They're like, this isn't working for me. Well, what was your plan? What were you actually expecting? Like, okay, you met Donnie for lunch, but what was your plan? What were you going to get from Donnie? And what was going to be beneficial for Donnie out of the conversation so he will say yes the next time? I don't think people really take it to that level. But that's how you get things done.
Ooh, we're preaching. We could go down that whole, especially just thinking through, like, there was some specific people that I was thinking through that just popped into mind where, we met or, something else, and maybe even people that we used to work with or anything. And I was just like, man, I don't know what their intention was, but I haven't heard from them, and I'm not sure that I would help them if they reached out to me. Like, I just don't.
Right.
I don't know. They haven't added any value to my life recently.
That value
Go ahead.
No, so I also think that people don't really, in a very general sense, right? Just all generalities, but value. Value is not about what you need. It is about what, like you said, where's the win-win? And sometimes it's just for the other person. But I think so often we're not thinking about what is the value of this? What is the value of someone's time? If I leave you waiting for 20 minutes, what is the value? Do I value you? Do I value your time? Do I value my time?
No.
I mean, do I value my reputation? It's just like the idea of value and how you create value, how you find synergistic value. I just think people sometimes get a little bit stuck thinking about what's good for them and not what's going to be valuable in a collective way. And I think so much about people that are wanting to achieve, it becomes selfish. But the truth is, it feels unnatural, but it really is kind of like a given, it comes back to you kind of a thing. Sure. So the more you pour into others and others' dreams and can be a part of someone else's journey and help them, it does snowball a bit and come boomerang right back to you. I believe that fully, again, with intention, but it can't just be about how does this serve me? It also has to be about how you can do something for others in the process.
Oh man, 1,000%. I mean, I think that, a lot of that comes from, the fact we kind of live in a microwave society, right? Which is what Jay was, really talking about. It's like, you see everybody's highlights on social media and stuff. And so you're like, man, I want that. And then on top of that, my personal belief is just that, no person is an island, right? And so in that case, this whole like self-made, I don't even know what to call it, but like this self-made philosophy, right? Like everybody's self-made. People even put it like in their subtitles and stuff. And I'm like, well, like, are you paying yourself? Do you not have clients? Do you not have a team? Do you not have like parents who like, came together and like birthed you? Like, I mean, there's so many other people who had to do something in order for you to achieve whatever you've done, even buy your product, right? Even if you created it. right? And it's amazing to me how self-promotion and self-made is like this really really big thing that has taken off. And I think people, depending on what voices and information you're kind of pouring into yourself, you can really start to believe that hype.
Agree.
When in actuality, like you can't do anything or achieve anything without other people. I mean, you literally referenced someone who was ahead of you, relatively speaking, in an
Mhm.
organization, sitting you down and
Yeah.
pointing you in a direction. And I'm sure that that's happened to me numerous times, in my life as well. Um, Man, yeah. So there's that.
Mhm.
So I mean, we're short on time today, unfortunately, because you're just dropping so many gems, for folks, and which I kind of knew you would. So I'm very excited about this. Um, as you continue to think, in your life, and you've achieved some of the things that you've sought out to achieve. Um, can you talk us through kind of your, some of your planning process, in general? I know we're about to head into 2022. How do you not remain stagnant? How do you not remain comfortable, if you will, and
Mhm.
continue to, aspire to, something bigger?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with what you take in.
Okay.
So if I'm not staying connected with the Donnie Bedneys of the world who are also dreaming, if I am not, no, seriously, if I'm not listening to a podcast, if I'm not listening to a book, if I'm not, even if it's YouTube, right? For people like, oh, I
Mhm.
don't like to read. I am not a great like page turner reader, but I will listen to an Audible all day long. Like
Man,
I don't know
shout
what I
out
would.
to Audible.
I know. I don't know what I would do without audiobooks. But I think you really have to be careful what you put into your mind
Mhm.
and be really intentional about that. So I think that's one way is like just to stay motivated and to stay focused. And there's so much content out there,
Yeah.
regardless of what you're looking for, what you're drawn to. So I think that's one way. It's people, it's what I'm listening to, it's what I'm
Okay.
reading. And then sometimes also it can be influenced by my life. So, being a
Mm.
mother of small children, I think about what I want to teach them,
Mhm.
what I want to model for them.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's like, thinking about, okay, well, when I have a milestone age, what do I want that to look like for me? Sometimes it's someone else's birthday. But
Mm.
I'm like, well, when I'm turning 60, what
Mhm.
what do I want to be saying to people? Do I want to be leading a team call at work on my 60th birthday, or do I want to not be
Mm.
working? So it's like even all of those things I
Yeah.
think really influence me to think, okay, well, if I am here today and if there
Yeah.
are all these things I aspire to
Mhm.
either accomplish or achieve or change in my life, in my work,
Yeah.
then what's next, right? And I don't think that it looks like all the details month by month, plan by plan, but for me, a lot of it is milestones. So
Got
I'll
it.
say by this time frame, I want to be doing these things.
Okay.
So one of the things, for example, that I am working on right now is like some real estate investing. And so
Ah.
it's like you start with one and it feels overwhelming,
Mhm.
but then you can do two, and then you can do four.
Mm.
Then you could do like eight. So like it happens very fast. I'm not at eight, but I can now see how quickly you can get there.
Yeah.
And
That sounded like
I
a Jay-Z line, by the way.
did
1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 4.
That's so true.
Anyway.
That's so true. So yeah, I think you got to set those milestones for yourself to say, okay, here's what I can do now.
Okay.
Another thing that I love is this idea of just what's my next step?
Yeah.
What is the very next step you can take? You don't have to have a full
Mm.
plan, but maybe it's making the call to, get a coach. It's calling that friend. It's reaching out to someone at work to say, can I talk to you? Just to
Mm.
have a one-time like mentoring check-in, right? People
Yeah.
get nervous about like, oh, having a mentor, I don't want to ask someone. You don't need to ask someone to be your mentor. You just need to ask to go to coffee. You need to ask
Yeah,
for advice. It's like these smaller things and experiences we create. But I think a lot of it has to do with your circle and what you intake, and that is what carries you so often. I
hmm
think I'm naturally just inspired by the future and dreaming about the future, but
sure.
I think being mindful of because you could also just dream and not get anything done. So I think
Yeah,
the intentionality around having a plan and knowing where you want to be and what milestones you have really helps you be more focused and actually accomplish things.
yeah. Man, that is an excellent way and thought to kind of end on, today. As always, like to kind of end our calls with, where can people find you? I know, LinkedIn and stuff like that, but are you on social any other place? Can people tweet at you or, anything
Yeah, I
along
would
those lines?
say I am most active on LinkedIn. So that's probably the easiest way to reach me. And I usually try to respond to, people that reach out. So that's the easiest way to find me, Alyson Parker Gordon. Yeah, and always happy to connect with new people and people that are dreaming big.
We'll also point out the fact, as we were talking about this before the recording, just to set expectations for everyone, LinkedIn is not like an immediate response path for
No.
Allison or myself. So if you do reach out, please understand that that is not something that we will be responding back to you instantly at all. But obviously I'm on LinkedIn as well. So I just wanted to set that expectation for everybody.
Yeah.
Allison, thank
That's
you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for your time. It's just been so excellent. And for everyone else, this is the Only Dream Big podcast. We'll see you next week.
Take care.
That's all for today, folks. See you next time.